Hello folks, today I'm going to do something a little bit different, at least start the next phase of something a little bit different for me anyway. And as I do a little body work on the frame of the little Yamaha 100 Twin Jet. This is the frame right here, and this is a pressed together, I think of two halves of a clamshell that were brought together in the factory, two stampings, and then they were welded. It's not a tubular frame like we think of more modern bikes. And what had happened apparently, someone had bobbed this fender. This is the rear fender. The frame is tilted forward like this right now. Okay, and someone had cut this off, and I'm not sure why, but my guess would be they probably had damaged the end of it and just cut it off with a hacksaw or whatever. Well, I'm going to put that back. So what I ended up doing is I got a piece of a rear fender. See if I can get that in frame here, right there, from a salvage yard. This is the same frame, for the same frame, and this normally would set in about that position. So you can see this is the piece right here. This is the section that got cut away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this sacrificial piece off. I'm going to cut the original off to match and weld them together. Now I've done some tin work before. I've done a lot of welding, MIG welding before. I've never done this type of body work. It's going to be a little complex because of the shape. So what I decided to do, since there's a matching set of holes here and here in the frame, in the original frame, I made this little aluminum cutting template basically, and I bolted it. I drilled it to match the holes on both sides, and then I bolted it to the frame. And I'm going to use the front, or in this case actually the rear edge, as a cutting template for my air saw, so I can cut this off. I will transfer this template to this piece, bolt it to these four holes, and then again cut this piece off. This part will go away and will no longer be needed. And this is the piece for my hand this way towards me that will be salvaged and positioned and welded back on. That's the plan. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my air saw, and using this edge again, just to reiterate as a template, I will use the air saw, and I'm going to cut this off real carefully, and then I'll do the same thing to this piece. And there's the cut off piece. And you can see I'll have to probably clean that up with a angle grinder a little bit, square it up, make sure it's nice and clean, and then I'll move on to cutting that piece. And there's the tail piece of the end of the fender cut off. Did it just like I did the main fender itself. Bolted on cutting template, cut it off with the air saw. Now I'll clean it up and match it up. This shows the fit up of the new piece of fender here, two of my fingers that I cut off the sacrificial, or had cut off the sacrificial frame. And then to the left here is the original frame that I've got to add this piece to, because this is what was bobbed here on the original frame. And you can see I've got the joint just about ready to go. It's been clamped approximately in place. I got a little more tuning of the fit here, the joint. I put a lot of time into squaring up this joint and making sure it's nice and clean and tight on both sides. It's pretty good right now in terms of location. I might have a little more finessing to do, and then I'll clean it one last time, and then I'll start tacking it with my MIG welder. Towards that end, I've been experimenting with some coupons, welding coupons. This is approximately 16 gauge steel. It's actually quite heavy. And I have some 16 gauge sheet metal here that I've been fiddling around with, getting my heat and speed right for tacking, and you can see the back of this one. And then I've been ground off the front. So I've got three different ones going here with the speed, that speed of the wire, not because I'll be tack welding it, wire speed on the dial and the voltage that I've been fiddling around with. I found on these that a little hotter, because I'm in and out really quick with these tack welds, a little hotter than the recommendation, starting recommendation from Lincoln seemed to work best. I might back off just a little bit on the heat initially, just to see how that goes, because I didn't want to blow through this. On these I had no blow through problems at all, actually. And you can see my kind of the different versions and different heat and how long I held it. So what I'm going to do now is I'll finish cleaning this and getting it located where I want it, and then I'll start putting some tacks to pin it in position. And then once I've got that done, then I can take my time and start filling in the tacks on each side. I want to go slow and deliberate here because it's still relatively thin at 16 gauge, and I don't want to overheat it and warp it. So I'll take plenty of time to do that. I'm not in a rush. There's no need to hurry this. I'm going to put more time into getting the fit just exactly the way I want it before I start welding. I'm not going to show the whole process of welding. What I will do is I'll do a little bit of the initial starting the tacks, because from that point on then it'll just be repetition. Here you can see the series of tack welds I started. I'm probably a third of the way through. I got a position and got a tack on each side, and then I just started alternating back and forth. And I had one blow through over here that I had to fill in. Actually, it happened in my very first weld. So I filled that in and brought the temperature down just a tad. And so far, I haven't had any blow-throughs. And again, my intent is to keep the welds as flat and as low as I can. A couple of them are a little higher than others. It just means that I held the trigger down too long. But I'm alternating back and forth between sides so I can keep the heat in the middle down. So I'll go ahead now and add another tack or two to the video and see if I can get this in frame without blocking your view. There's the weld I just completed right there, and that's just about what I want in terms of size. Perfectly centered on the seam. Check for heat, make sure it's not too hot, and I'll go in and put another one in. There we go. So now I'm just going to go ahead and complete the process back and forth. Then I'll come back and grind them smooth, and I'll show you that later. Well, here you can see the welding is done. This is the right side. The left side is virtually identical. You can see where I'd stitched the welds, and I worked back and forth separating each tack so I didn't overheat any section. Fortunately, I really didn't have any metal distortion to speak of here because I took my time. This entire process, probably have at least 2 hours in it, maybe even a little more, because again I took my time and I was in no hurry. And I welded underneath here all the way along up over this ridge here and down along the other side the same way. And I tried to keep the welds as small and as low as possible. I only had one burn through over here on the left side, which is my, believe it or not, my very first tack. So I had to bring the voltage or heat down just a bit, and then I was fine after that. So next step, obviously, we will just start grinding this down and shaping it, and this is quite critical as well that I don't overheat the metal and distort it. So I'll take my time with that. Start with a fairly aggressive grit, and I'll probably use, bend over here, I'll probably use a little angle grinder because I have better control of this way. I don't know yet. I'll experiment a little bit, but we'll see. But now I'll start the process of grinding this and shaping it, the welds down. If I have any welds that are poor quality or I can see holes through them, which I wouldn't be surprised, then I'll just re-weld those as I go. And so that when I'm done, it'll be basically a seamless joint all the way around, and it's obviously good and sturdy. So that's the next step.